about this? I'm not even going to try to segue. You're on the site right now, Nick. You have one of the coolest initiatives that I've seen, and that is over the next month, right? We just talked about it earlier this show. All the sports are about to end, and we're about to click fully into football season. Over the next month, you are almost putting on a camp of sorts for Saints fans in that you are going to dive into the weeds and teach, like, the fundamentals of how to watch Saints football. Like today, the issue is the coverages the Saints play and how to identify them. Give me the kind of genesis behind this idea, because I absolutely love this idea. All of us watch football. 99% of us don't have much clue of what's going on.
Yeah, sorry. It's what you just said. I mean, I think back to how much work I've had to put in just to use some of these terms and that. And look, it becomes a lot easier just to say, hey, they're playing quarters coverage, but you got to take time out to figure out what that means, or, oh, this guy's playing 3 tech on the defensive line. Like, the first time you hear that, you don't know what it means, and a lot of people probably don't know what that means. And we throw those terms around, and look, it makes the writing a lot easier to be like, oh, he's like, instead of, you say what technique they're playing instead of, oh, he's the wide 9 outside of the shoulder of the tight end rushing. And we throw these terms around, and people probably have no idea what they mean. And they say them on TV and they say them everywhere. So the offseason's slowing down. Just take a step back, dig into some of the stuff, and write some guides that people can use to find out, the stuff they don't know, and maybe brush up on some of the things they do know, but maybe there's a piece missing. And if you are, an expert on all this stuff already, there's still things in these articles that I put in there that I think can help just deepen your understanding, just how often they play some of these coverages, their success rates against them. And we'll do that for everything. But, I think it's important for, people to understand this stuff so they know what they're looking at. And that's one of the things we try to do on the site is maybe try to raise the level a little bit and help the things I know. Because really the way I try to approach my job is that I have access to all these people, coaches, players, all that stuff. I'm just trying to find stuff out and teach you what I find out. So yeah. I'm learning and I'm trying to help you learn. I'm trying to take the information and make it approachable and digestible for everybody else to get a little bit smarter about what they're watching. So I think just kind of building that foundation and kind of having a glossary of sorts is helpful to that effort.
Yeah, and like, let's be clear, right? I've studied a lot of football. I've watched a lot of football. I'm not the best when it comes to coverage. Like, I learned a ton in that article, and because it is so Saints specific, if you're like a real big Saints fan, it helps you gain so much more insight into the team itself. And it's like anything else in life, right? You can go watch golf and it's great. You can appreciate an incredible putt or like a long drive. But when you go out there and you do it, or you understand some of the nuances better, you're going to have more appreciation. It's like chess, like anything in life. So if you're tired of just kind of passively watching football and you want to go into that extra dimension, New Orleans Football and Nick can bring you there. It's a great idea, Nick. A really, really good idea. Something else that I loved from your Twitter this week were some videos of Jameis Winston rocketing the ball, bro. I mean, the arm strength is on display in these videos, whether it's a deep out, the deep ball. It is a far cry from what you've experienced as a Saints in the last few years. How about this, though? We know all about Jameis's arm. What is the view on Taysom's arm right now? Because certainly last season, some of those deep balls were the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
I'm about to bring up like a July talking point right here. But, one of the things that I find interesting, and I'm chief among the people behind this talking point, and I apologize real quick. I'm battling a non-COVID throat thing, so if my voice is a little bit weird, that's it. And in a weird way, it's nice to get a non-COVID illness. That's something that we haven't had in like a year, so I guess the world's back now that we're catching common colds or whatever. But
yeah.
One of the things that I find interesting is that we believe that Jameis can completely change his decision-making process. But for some reason, we don't think Taysom can speed up his decision-making process. And we're kind of given this just, he can fix all these things and Taysom can't. I'm going to be interested to see how these guys look in camp. I mean, we've said this a million times. You see everything Jameis is doing because he has this cameraman there, and his cameraman knows how to use social media, and he's putting all this stuff out. And we see the growth and the progress and just different things to get people excited. And, Taysom's behind the scenes, moving in silence, doing whatever he's doing, and we don't know what he's going to emerge to look like. But, he is working on his footwork and all that stuff. And he says the reason that he wasn't able to get the ball out quick enough last year is because feet weren't in the proper position and ready to throw when he saw things. So he's working on fixing that so he can make faster decisions. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if he can do that. And if he does, I think this race gets a little bit tighter because, everything that Taysom can do in this vacuum, if he becomes a good version of himself, he's a very good modern quarterback with his ability to move and all that different stuff. But yeah, going back to the deep ball, Jameis' deep ball is something definitely to get excited about. One of the passes he threw was a 20-yard out route. And over the last 4 years, Drew's only hit 4 of those in a game. So that would be an element of the offense that would come. Jameis wasn't exactly lighting those up during his time in Tampa Bay. I think he had 6 or 7 over his last 4 years as a starter there. And, the difference, though, is that Tampa didn't have a great offensive line. They were always playing from behind. They didn't have a running game. You add all those elements that he'd have here, good line, running game, get some play action going. You get in some of these deeper passes. I think that elements of the offense would just be back in place with him. And like you said, I don't know if you get all the way there with Taysom because, those deep balls, he can get it there, but they aren't sharp. They aren't on a line. They're kind of hanging in the air. They're getting there. Yeah, he gets the job done, but it's not the same. Like, Jameis is, like you said, they were on a rope. And it was, it's exciting to see when you're looking at that stuff and you're thinking about the Saints and how they've played. And then you see this guy that's, to be real, his arm's stronger than Brees' ever was. Brees had functional arm strength, but it wasn't ever a cannon, and he got the job done. But, Jameis has a cannon, man. And the stuff they could do with him. And then you saw the video with Deontay Harris. He's, doing all this stuff down the field. They had on a 73-yard pass down the field. Like, that's just stuff you didn't see in Saints football. And if he can bring those elements and fix that decision-making, there's a chance for it to be legitimately – but there's still so many ifs to get to that point.
Yeah, and let's be clear. I've always my old man always raised me as understanding that arm strength is the most overrated part of quarterback play. But I'll be damned if it isn't sexy when somebody can throw that thing 80 yards. It looks good. And shout out to Real Super Nola, which is where the video came from on Twitter at Real Super Nola. Let's talk about Deontay Harris, Nick. We've flirted with this topic a few times this offseason. But he had some real shining moments and real big plays last season, and then obviously injuries kind of upset some of the progress that he had made. What are your expectations for him and how he factors in? Like, if we were to do a weapons hierarchy for whoever the quarterback is to throw to, where does Deontay Harris fall in that thing?
Maybe like fourth or so. Maybe he'd be like in an expanded Joe Morgan type of role. I don't know if you remember the year Joe Morgan had. I think it was 2013. He averaged like 20 yards a catch. It was just really a nice explosive element for their offense. I think he could do some of that, but I think he's also maybe the plus part of that is important because I think he can do a little bit more than run go routes. He looks good doing a lot of different stuff. Playing more towards the boundary. I think you got to do things to protect him and make sure he isn't taking too many hits. Because, he is a smaller size receiver and he's have popped up over the years. But, I think that he can be a legitimate weapon, even if it's in a reduced fashion with someone like Jameis. Just you can take advantage of that speed now and you get some of that Tyreek Hill element, going down the field where you just got this guy that's faster than everybody and can just run by him. And, I don't think they've had that. And he's a guy that would get blocked at that. He's the guy that can hit that 20-yard out route, and Jameis can fire the ball in there, and it works. And I just think that he has there's a lot of exciting elements that I think that they could bring out of his game, and they tried to last year. There were a few games where they had Deontay specific game plans to get him going. The Raiders was supposed to be one of them. Didn't quite work out that way. I think you find out quickly that Brees was fighting through some stuff early in the season, and the ball just couldn't get there. But they do have these plans to make him, this type of mismatched player. And, I think a lot of that is dependent on the quarterback. And either one of these guys, Taysom doesn't have the greatest deep ball, but he has a deep ball that can get there more so than Brees has the last couple of years. So I do think he's going to get unlocked and be an exciting piece for them.
Talking Nick Underhill, New Orleans on football, and my throw too, Nick. I don't know what's going on. But to show you how New Orleans on football runs the gamut, here's a June 23rd article, how cap guru Kai Harley became the Saints' secret weapon. And for those that don't know, Kai Harley is kind of the brainchild behind a lot of the Saints' manipulation of the cap, which is very forward-thinking, very ahead of the curve. It's found loopholes. what is Kai Harley's future, right? Like when you come up in the way that he did and you're doing things that are so potentially game-changing, do you think he wants to just stay in New Orleans? Does he have aspirations of being a GM himself one day?
He danced around that exact question a little bit, but I do think that everybody that works in the front office has aspirations to be a GM. And he isn't someone that's really out there like that, that's really pushing for it or anything like that. Some other guys will openly answer that question. Jeff Ireland has openly said that, he has aspirations to be a GM again, and he's working toward that. I do think that Kai would definitely take those calls and be open to it. His name came up in a couple different places, actually, this offseason. But it would be interesting to see if he actually got that job. I don't know if there's another step between being senior VP for the Saints, before you become a GM, maybe an assistant GM somewhere, just to kind of learn a little bit more of that evaluation and some of the other things that I think you need to know as a general manager, how to run a draft, all those things. I know Kai's involved in a lot of their free agent decisions, valuing them, and some evaluation of the players has to go into the valuation, money wise,
yep,
of those players, and he's involved in a lot of that. But as far as scouting, team building, all that stuff, I think there's probably maybe some stuff there that he could pick up at another spot. But at some point, I think someone is going to make a run at him. He does a lot of stuff with the cap that's just ingenious, and he creates different ways to manipulate it that other teams have picked up around the league. There's a couple things in that article that we pointed out that he brought up, like, just different ways to structure roster bonuses, essentially, that are tied to option years on contracts, just so you don't have to pay it that year. And then once you have the cap from a couple of years down the road, you hit the option, then you pay the roster bonus from 2 years ago. And, that's $2 million you save on the cap. It's just like a lot of little things through necessity that he's figured out ways to manipulate the cap that other people just have never had to think about or come up with. And these things that he comes up with then become adopted by other people across the league. So he's quietly like an influencer just in the salary cap space. And, his name's just been out there more and more. And I think this year getting that $100 million burden off, getting under the cap, and really not getting rid of any key players, at some point someone's going to say, we have to have this guy. And the Saints are going to have to figure out, hey, do we fight to keep him, or do we let him go? If they let him go, they get, 2 third-round picks like they did with Terry Fontenot. And, that's not a horrible outcome, but I think losing Kai Harley with the way they run the cap, that's somebody that you don't want to let out of the building.
Nick Underhill, at Nick_Underhill, the best when it comes to the black and gold. Again, the site is neworleans.football. And that is run by Nick. All proceeds, it's not going to any corporate overlord. It's supporting the work that is done. Nick, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, when we get back, closing up with a little Ask the Bench brought to you by Cold Course Light. Get your questions in the YouTube chat. We'll answer them now.